This is Lee Hyan, a 17-year-old student obsessed with horror who somehow ended up trapped inside a real horror RPG. Now he's walking alone through the dark, empty halls of his school, chest tight like something in that place was terribly wrong. His goal was simple: reach the teacher's office, where the emergency key was his only way out of there. But when he steps inside, the room is completely empty, and out of nowhere a keyboard starts typing by itself. Freaked out, he tries to ignore it and just find the key, but right then a sinister red light flicks on at the back of the room. On the monitor, a message says the clue he's looking for is right there. He hesitates, unsure whether to get any closer, because every instinct was screaming that something awful was coming. Up close, the screen kept repeating, "If you just run, Lee Hyan dies." His blood runs cold when he realizes that thing knew his name, and he was in there alone with no walkthrough and no experience to survive. The whole thing looked like one of those classic pixel RPG Maker games. That's when the continue button gets pressed, kicking off the nightmare. But it had all started earlier, sitting at the computer in his room, while he searched online, as hooked on the genre as he'd always been, until he found a secret key on the map that he'd completely missed. Then out of nowhere, a notification echoes through the room. Thrown off by a message that late at night he gets curious, and without thinking twice, he clicks to open the email. He could barely believe someone had actually sent him that file. It was Unreality, a legendary horror RPG nobody could find online anymore. So rare that not a single photo or file of it existed anywhere. Thrilled with the find, he moves the cursor and clicks to open it. But the second he confirms, the screen warps into a sinister darkness, and when he opens his eyes, Lee is lying at a school desk. The clock on the wall was already past midnight, and he couldn't figure out how he got there when he'd just been in his room. All he remembered was an exhausting day and passing out during class. Grabbing his backpack, he wonders how nobody woke him before locking up. But when he tries the door, he realizes it's locked from the outside. Suddenly, a blue flash lights up behind him. A screen pops up announcing the start of the tutorial. He has 10 minutes to escape the room, and the penalty for failing is death. Not wanting to believe any of it, he scratches his head, figuring he's just fried from playing too many video games. As the timer starts ticking, he tries to convince himself he's just stuck in a lucid dream. To keep himself from panicking, he decides to play along and start searching the room for the usual clues. His first move is to dig through the teacher's desk, but the system quickly tells him the desk and the cabinets are all completely empty. Racing the clock between the rows, our hero finally spots something glinting on one of the desks. It was one of those classic sparkling points you see in RPGs. He crouches down fast and reaches under the desk, sure he's found his way out. But to his frustration, all he pulls out is a recorder planted there just to waste his time. Refusing to give up, he notices another glowing spot and pulls out a folded piece of paper with 4 numbers scribbled on it: 0, 1, 3, and 4. Our boy immediately assumes it's the combination to some padlock in the room. But before he can do anything, a deafening alarm goes off, drenching the whole place in red. In sheer panic, he watches the timer hit 0. Suddenly, the lock clicks and the door swings open, revealing the silhouette of a night guard shining a flashlight straight at him. Caught in the beam, our boy tries to call out to the guard for help, but comes face to face with a hideous, disfigured creature, and before he can react, massive claws come down to crush him. The red screen appears instantly, announcing the game will restart from the last save point. In that same second, Lee Hyan wakes up again at the very same desk where it all began. That's when the blue tutorial screen shows up again, starting the same 10-minute countdown. Everything was repeating itself in exactly the same way, and the memory of being torn apart by that monster proves his death was no hallucination. Without wasting a single second, he runs to the door and tries the code from the paper on the padlock, but to his horror, the latch won't budge and the lock stays shut. With time running out, the fear of dying again in that endless loop starts taking over his mind. Our hero forces himself to stay calm, and decides to retrace his steps to find the crucial detail he overlooked. Searching the lockers in the back, the system keeps insisting there's nothing inside them. But then his eyes land on the name tag on one of the doors. He reads the name written there, and finally puts the whole puzzle together. Lee shouts, "Inventory!" Instantly, a system window materializes, showing the description of a recorder bought for a music exam, tagged with that same student's name. The name matched the one on the locker perfectly, and our hero realizes the numbers on the paper were actually finger positions on the instrument, but he still needed a fingering chart to know exactly which note to play. But then he glances at the bulletin board, and finds the exam instructions with a guide for every hole. Even with his hands shaking, he places his fingers over the marked holes and starts to blow. In that same second, the padlock on the door starts glowing brightly. Silence swallows the room for a few seconds, and the boy is afraid he blew the wrong note at the last moment. That's when the metal latch snaps loose and the lock pops open. The system confirms the tutorial was completed successfully and unlocks the status window. Outside, a dark, silent hallway stretched out in front of him. Our hero slips out of the room, trying not to make a sound. Then a new quest appears, demanding that he escape the school before nightfall. Knowing the deadly danger all around him, he whispers for his stats, and a screen immediately opens up in front of him. Looking over his info, he notices a special trait for keeping his cool. Seeing all of that laid out in front of him makes our boy feel like he's literally inside a video game. Well, the system explains that from consuming so much horror content, he's built up a resistance that helps him calm down quickly. The catch is, it's useless against horrors beyond human comprehension, which is no comfort at all in that pitch-black hallway. He takes one more step when the twisted guard reappears at the top of the stairs, staring down at him. Coming face to face with that abomination again sends a chill straight down the poor guy's spine. Reading the sign banning the use of the main entrance, he figures out the mechanic. The monster only shows up when a rule gets broken. Without thinking twice, he bolts. Reaching the exit, our hero throws himself against the glass, only to find the doors chained shut. He figured the door wouldn't open that easily, so he grabs the warning sign off the floor to use as a makeshift weapon. Right then, the monster lunges in, shrieking through its huge zombie mouth. With quick reflexes, Lee Hyun smashes the sign right into the thing's face. But the creature doesn't even flinch, and with its arms stretching out in a grotesque way, the monster strikes him down, splattering blood all over the hallway. Once again, his body drops lifeless to the floor, bringing up the death screen. About to restart from his save point, the boy just starts laughing. I mean, how the hell is he supposed to escape something that broken? As the timer keeps ticking down, he gets up and starts walking again. Lee thinks about how in every RPG Maker game, the main character always has one clearly defined objective, whether that's escaping a mansion full of monsters or getting out of some twisted museum overrun by horrors. And inside that warped school, his goal was no different. He had to shake off that terrifying guard at any cost, waiting patiently until the creature gave up searching and moved on down the hall. Hiding in a locker with his hand over his mouth to stay quiet, his only priority was getting out alive. He cracks the door open very carefully to check his surroundings, and once he's sure the coast is clear, he slips out of his hiding spot, brushing the dust off his clothes. Our boy tries to pull himself together, realizing he died for nothing back in the teacher's lounge when all he had to do was hide. Dude, I do this exact same thing when I play Resident Evil. That's when he spots a key glinting on the floor. Picking it up, he sees on the tag that it's the key to the art room. He knows full well the game isn't about to make anything easy for him, and when he opens the door, he walks into a classic horror scene full of creepy statues and dark stains. With the atmosphere getting heavier by the second, walking through that place alone becomes a real test of nerves. Along the way, a tipped-over bucket spills a red liquid that looks an awful lot like blood. To make things worse, one of the plaster sculptures has features so human it looks like a petrified person. Crouched on the floor, our hero starts rummaging through the scattered painting supplies for anything useful and ends up finding a glowing journal with the option to save his progress. He's thrilled since now he won't have to start all over from scratch if he dies again. But when he opens it up, the system warns him he needs ink to record his progress. Without a single drop in his inventory, our hero lets out a long sigh. Nothing in that place was going to be handed to him. With no other choice, he closes the book and gets ready to search the room for the missing item. Since it's an art room, he figures finding ink shouldn't be all that complicated. That's when his eyes land on a portrait of a student with yellow eyes. Finding it strange to see a student framed on the wall, he steps closer and reaches out to touch the glass, but the girl in the painting suddenly turns her head and stares right at him. The scare is so bad that Lee Hyun stumbles several steps backward. Lee wonders if he's now got a student's ghost to deal with. That's when he notices the figure's reflection calmly walking by on the other side. That's when it clicks that it wasn't a painting at all, but a window looking out into the hallway. Right then, a sound from outside catches his attention, meaning someone really was walking around out there. Hoping to find another person who might know what was going on, our hero runs after her. But when he gets to the hallway, all he finds is dead silence. The girl had simply vanished without a trace, leaving him with the unsettling question of whether she was even human or just another ghost. That's when something shining on the floor catches his eye. Lee bends down and picks up a bottle of black ink, finally getting the item he needs to save the game. Holding the bottle, he notices the glass is still warm, like it had just been dropped there. That makes him wonder if the mysterious girl from earlier let the item fall on purpose along the way. Not wanting to risk it, our boy uses the ink on the journal to lock in a save point right away, and the system confirms that from now on he'll respawn at that exact spot if he dies. Back on the move, he wonders who that girl was, since a real ghost wouldn't leave a warm trail behind. Suddenly, something bizarre catches his attention, an old painting depicting the famous four Bronte sisters. Right then, blood starts running down the edges of the frame, revealing a macabre message ordering him to find and eliminate the imposter hiding among the family. The order written in blood was blunt and left no room for mistakes. Covering his nose against the heavy stench of rot, Lee realizes he's facing a new puzzle. The challenge lays out the statements. Charlotte claims Emily is her sister, while Emily says Anne belongs to the family. On the other hand, Elizabeth accuses the others of lying, while Anne insists her sisters are telling the truth. At first glance, it looked like a classic logic test, simple enough to solve, but the blood starts gushing out of control, cutting down his time to give an answer. Pressing his hands to his head to think faster, the kid pieces the clues together fast. If most of the statements check out as true in a chain, then the only one with an obvious contradiction and the intent to deceive could only be one of them. So our boy shouts that the liar is Elizabeth. Silence freezes the room once again, leaving him to wait for the game's verdict. But the painting floods with blood and a message telling him the imposter survived. Lee Hyun goes into shock, wondering where he went wrong. That's when monstrous hands burst out of the warped ceiling and grab the boy. His body is lifted into the air like he weighed absolutely nothing. In a split second, he's torn apart, leaving nothing but a trail running down the wall. The painting then reveals the cruel historical truth. There were only ever 3 Bronte sisters. The death screen shows up again, respawning him from his last save point. He wakes up in the hallway, exactly where he used the journal moments earlier. Still feeling the awful sensation of dying, Lee is thankful he saved the game. Walking back to the room, he tries to work out whether Elizabeth wasn't the guilty one after all, because the usual logic just didn't seem to add up. Elizabeth claimed that either Charlotte or Anne was lying, which left our boy racking his brain over who the real imposter was. But the blood takes over the painting again, cutting his thinking time in half. In desperation, trusting his recent save, he takes a shot in the dark. The liar is Charlotte! The answer comes as he's sucked headfirst into the painting, racking up another death. Back in action with his options cut in half, our boy guesses the imposter is Anne, but he's wrong again, and seeing the restart screen that many times in a row was starting to mess with his head. Gathering what strength he has left, he puts all his chips on the only one left and points at Emily. Only to his horror, the game punishes him with another instant death, dropping him to the floor once more. He couldn't understand how all 4 options could possibly be wrong. Dragging his feet down the hallway, he tries to figure out the trick behind that cursed riddle when his foot catches on a bucket lying near the door. The system reveals a sharp palette knife, warning that it can slice through canvas with ease. With the tool in hand, an idea clicks in the kid's mind. He rereads the message on the wall and realizes his first answer wasn't wrong at all. The real mistake was in how he tried to eliminate the liar. Without hesitating, our hero raises the knife, ready to put an end to the imposter Elizabeth. The woman's face twists into a horrifying scream that echoes through the whole room. A deafening wave of screams slams into the boy, covering one ear so he doesn't go deaf. He watches the painting rip apart into a grotesque bubbling mass. Determined to survive, he keeps slashing away until the abomination is completely destroyed. But from the torn shadows of the canvas, dark figures start laughing. Still, with the imposter finally destroyed, the painting settles down and returns to normal. An explanation appears revealing that the portrait was painted by the youngest brother who had erased himself from the canvas. Our boy then understands that the imposter had stolen her own brother's place in the family. The poor guy can't believe he died that many times over something so obvious. Right then, the storage room door slowly creaks open. The groan of the wood invites Lee to move on to the next challenge on that floor. He hesitates for a moment, finding the vibe of that place way too creepy. And when he steps in, he's met by a row of plaster busts staring into the room with grim expressions. Creeped out by those awful stares, he immediately turns one of the statues around to face the wall. That's when he notices something shining under the plaster base, and when he pulls the glowing item out, the system confirms he's obtained a purchase receipt. The paper had a note in red stressing how important it was to check the room's stock. Our hero starts counting the statues on the shelves, adding up to 10 in total, but realizes there's one more sculpture than the receipt said there should be. He picks up the metal hammer, adding a new tool to his inventory. The description warns that it's cracked and will only hold up for one single swing before breaking. The puzzle was clear. One of those heads was fake, and he only had one shot to get it right. Afraid the statue might come to life, he gives it a light tap to test it, and backs off armed to the teeth, tense and braced for any aggressive reaction. When nothing happens, he lets out an awkward laugh, figuring he was just being way too paranoid, until a chill crawls up his spine. Touching that statue's head, he feels an unsettling body heat, nothing like the cold plaster of the others. The sound of a heartbeat echoes from the bust, confirming that was the fake head. With a confident grin at having found his target, our hero raises the hammer with everything he's got, and brings it down in one swing, shattering the tool on impact. Inside, there was a bit of brain matter, holding a shining key. Covering his eyes in disgust, the poor guy reaches in to grab the item. Without looking, he digs his fingers deeper into the goo, begging for the key to just come out already. With one hard pull, he finally obtains the key to the school library. Looking at the filthy, blood-covered key, he remembers the library is right next to the art room. Reaching the door, he unlocks the entrance and hears the click of the lock giving way. Peeking inside, expecting to find some kind of puzzle involving books, he nearly falls over backward at the sight of an endless abyss of shelves that seem to have no end. That's when Lee comes face to face with the same yellow-eyed student, leaning against a table, calmly reading. It was without a doubt the girl from the painting earlier, alive and relaxed in the middle of that hell. Suddenly, she breaks the silence, asking what he's been staring at. With a mysterious smile, she tucks her hair behind her ear. Completely thrown off, our boy waves back, not understanding how anyone could read a book in peace with a monster on the loose. Glancing at the girl's uniform, he notices the name tag pinned to it. He instantly remembers that it was the exact same name written on the recorder from before, the personal instrument that he had put in his own mouth and played. The embarrassment hits so hard that Lee covers his face. Peeking around the shelf, Jinda Yeon catches his reaction and calls him a pervert. Panicking, the boy tries to explain himself and swears up and down that it wasn't like that at all. She reveals that she'd already been waiting for him. The girl steps in close enough to almost touch him and taps the tag on his chest, reading the name Lee Hyun. She warns him that he needs to get ready because that school is no place for fools. Lee barely has time to process her words when a window with dialogue options pops up in front of them both. Seeing that the system works even during normal conversations leaves Lee stunned, so he picks the second option and asks who she really is. With a finger to her lips, she just smiles and says it's a secret. Then she pulls him closer by his tie, promising she would never hurt him, and whispers right up against his face that he shouldn't worry. Caught off guard by how bold she is, Leah jumps back. Without missing a beat, she reaches out and tosses something through the air toward him. Opening his hands, he sees 2 numbered keys and wonders where they're supposed to be used. But without explaining much, the girl just asks him to follow her to a specific place. Trusting his guide, our protagonist follows her down the dark aisles of the library. Along the way, she reveals that the school turns into that nightmare every single night in the early hours. She explains that escaping means solving every last puzzle, saying she got trapped there the same way he did. Intrigued by her story, Lee Hyen asks how long she's been stuck in that place, and she answers that she's been trapped there for 10 years. Then she asks if he knows the reason she was never able to escape, when a secret passage opens up behind one of the massive bookshelves. On the other side, two identical doors to secret archives stand side by side. The system announces the passage will only open when the two become one, the real reason behind her failure. The inscription on the wall makes it clear that this challenge was designed exclusively for two people. Our boy quickly sizes up the situation, realizing that with two keys and two doors, the puzzle was actually pretty simple. She walks up to the doors, well aware she could never have opened them alone. Hyen hands one of the keys to his partner and suggests they unlock both locks at the same time. In perfect sync, the two of them turn the lock simultaneously. The door finally opens, proving that having a second person was the key to everything. Looking at her, our hero feels a pang in his chest, thinking about the 10 years the girl spent isolated in there. But with a dark look on her face, Jin Daeyeon holds out her hand and passes him another piece of paper. It was a childish drawing covered in hearts congratulating him, logged by the system as her reward. He's outraged at such a useless prize, but she explains she'd been saving that drawing for whoever helped her open the door. With a piercing look, the girl invites him into the new room. Her confident smile somehow makes the air feel mysteriously light for a moment. Once inside, they discover that both doors led to the exact same secret archive, packed with boxes. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoes behind them, and Daeyeon says they'll have to solve another puzzle to get out. He knocks against the air a few times and feels a solid barrier between them. There was an invisible wall splitting the room down the middle, putting the two of them on opposite sides. Searching his half of the room, our boy finds a book glowing on top of a stack. The moment he grabs it, the system flatly warns that whoever reads that red-covered book dies on the spot. Shocked at how dangerous that bizarre item is, he has no idea where to even start looking. From the other side of the glass, the girl waves him over about a clue she just found. She holds up a note with a straightforward instruction: stand facing each other. He scratches his head, confused, not seeing how that line connects to the mysterious book. Daeyeon suggests they simply look at each other, but Hyen points out they were already doing that and nothing came of it. To avoid any fatal accidents, he decides to stash the cursed book straight into his inventory. While our hero hauls heavy stacks around looking for clues, the slacker drops into an armchair. Our boy complains that she didn't even bother searching the shelves properly, when something in the middle of that mess catches his attention. He uncovers a red armchair identical to Daeyeon's buried under a mountain of papers. Pushing the books aside, he notices that even the side table and the flower vase sit in the same spot as on the other side. Meanwhile, the slacker plays with the rose in her vase, treating the place like she's on vacation. That's when the kid starts connecting the dots, noticing that the number of shelves and the position of the paintings on the walls match up perfectly. It's like one side is the mirror image of the other, revealing that the secret of the whole room is pure symmetry. He explains that having her around threw off his focus, but that this kind of puzzle is a classic in RPGs. The room's map makes the contrast obvious, his half a total mess, her side perfectly neat. The note's instruction required both sides to be identical for the exit to unlock. Confident he's cracked the riddle, our hero celebrates, and Daeyeon claps, congratulating the boy and reminding him he's got a whole lot of heavy lifting ahead of him. Yeah, the entire cleanup job lands squarely on him. Looking at the chaos on his side against the perfection on hers, the despair hits hard. While she just lounges around, the poor guy runs back and forth, stacking box after box after box. Until minutes later, he finally finishes organizing everything, leaving the place spotless. On the other side, the girl stretches with a yawn, saying the cleaning took longer than she expected. Our hero then calls her over to hand off one more important item, holding up the red roses he'd collected from his own vase. He explains that for the symmetry to be perfect, the number of flowers on both sides had to match too. Feeling a pang of emotion after so many years of loneliness, she reaches out to take the roses and thanks him, saying it had been a long time since she'd gotten real flowers. Absolutely delighted, she walks off to put them in the vase, rubbing the back of his neck to cover up how awkward he feels. Our boy tries to focus on the exit, and the two of them walk to their matching positions in the secret archive. He asks if the puzzle is finally solved now, but the door stays firmly locked. Even with the flowers perfectly matched in the vases, Daeyeon notices there's still one small difference between the paintings on the walls. Studying the painting on his side, he takes in the beautiful sunset over a field, but notices that hers is missing the tree that's in his. The girl touches the frame and wonders whether having the same painting is really what matters. That's when a light bulb goes off in Lee's head, realizing that the main goal is only the symmetry of the room itself, not the image in the frame. All they had to do was turn the paintings around to face the wall, so there'd be no visual difference at all. Turning the frame around, our boy discovers that the back of it was actually a mirror. He's caught off guard staring at his own reflection in the glass, while on the other side, Daeyeon does the same and takes the chance to compliment her own looks. Watching the girl admire herself in a mirror in the middle of a nightmare, he can't believe his eyes. But focusing on what actually matters, he sees the room is almost perfectly aligned, with only their own positions left to adjust to complete the room's human symmetry. So he asks his partner to stand directly in front of her mirror. She follows the instruction and stands still in front of the glass. And at that same moment, Hyen takes the matching spot on his side of the room. A click echoes off the walls and both exit doors finally swing open. Daeyeon admits he did well, joking that she thought he he was just a brainless pervert. Brushing the nickname aside, the boy pushes the handle to move forward, but his hand freezes in that same second. Through the crack, he sees a dark room with books scattered everywhere and a strange silhouette in the back. There's someone lurking out there. And that's a wrap, everybody. What an absolutely insane manhwa this was. It'd been a long time since I came across a horror manhwa this good, and this one is put together so well. If you want a part 2, drop a comment down below. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one.